Good morning, Spurs fans, and Tottenham are back in action tonight, and this time on Champions League duty as we travel away to take on PSG at the Parc de Princes in Paris. And this big game comes off the back of a humiliating 4-1 North London derby defeat to Arsenal, a performance that has completely rattled the entire Spurs fan base, has raised serious questions around the mentality inside the club, but also the managerial tactics and the hunger, desire, and passion of the players to play for the badge. But as always, us Spurs fans hope that we do see the team bounce back and show a bit of heart and pride tonight. And honestly, I know we got apologies for the manner of the performance off the back of the Arsenal game, but I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear it from the managers, from the players, because they never ever fix the issues on the pitch, and I'm absolutely fed up with it. Spurs players and managers have come out apologised more for not performing in big games than performances they've actually put in them games, and I'm sick of them coming out with their tail between their legs. Just start focusing and putting things right on the pitch. And look, I speak for many Spurs fans today. We understand that today we're up against it. It's a monumental task. To a degree, it's a free hit. And off the back of this, I don't think there should be too much fallout because it's PSG. It's one of the best teams in Europe. But one thing we are asking for is the bare minimum. A bit of commitment, a bit of fight, a bit of passion, a bit of belief, and also a clear game plan going into this game. If we see them things, we'll be pacified by that. And that's all we're asking today. So hopefully that happens. And the good thing is, Spurs do come into this unbeaten in the Champions League. 2 wins and 2 draws. You know, one of them was the demolition of Copenhagen. Whereas PSG come into this, they won 3 of their 4 games. They absolutely demoralised Atlanta, beating them 4-0. Hammered Bayer Leverkusen, beating them 7-2. Beat Barcelona 2-1. Their only defeat coming to Bayern Munich. This is also the second meeting of these two sides this season. Of course, we played them earlier on in the Super Cup. We ended up throwing somehow away a 2-0 lead late on in the game and end up losing to penalties on that night. And I know we can take some positives from the performance on the night, and the hope is that we can replicate some of that heading into this game. However, you do have to understand the context around that game that night. We had a full pre-season, a lot of games behind us. We were up to speed. PSG, they played a lot of games. They played nearly every game last season in the Champions League, from the qualifying rounds all the way to the final, plus the Club World Cup. So going into that Super Cup, they had no pre-season training behind them. They had no games behind them. And our fitness levels really showed on that night. Whereas tonight, they're now up to speed. And I think tonight you really are going to see the golf in class on the football pitch. So it'll be interesting to see how this game pans out. But in terms of tactics, I would expect Thomas Frank to probably go in here and play similar to what he did in the Super Cup. It is pragmatic, it is defensive, but some would argue it's probably the only way Spurs could survive in Paris tonight or not be humiliated. So with all that being said, let's get into my predicted 11 for the game against PSG today. Now starting in goals, and it will be Guglielmo Vicario, and he is set to be in for a long evening tonight. He's going to be under relentless pressure from the very off. PSG, they attack with pace, width, combinations, overlaps, putting balls in the box, taking pop shots. They're really, really good attacking side, and they are capable of punishing teams. Like I pointed out, put 4 by Atlanta, 2 by Barca, another 7 by Bayer Leverkusen. What a result that was. That right there sort of indicates how much we're going to rely on Vicario tonight and how busy he is going to be. And I know we conceded 4 against Arsenal, but I think it's easy to forget that, he wasn't really at fault for any of them goals. He couldn't really prevent them. And I do hope that his confidence hasn't taken too much of a hit off the back of that game. And you know what? Fair play to him for coming out and apologising. I do think that should have been Romero's job. So fair play to Vicario for that. But look, what I will say, Spurs fans, maybe a bit of hope that Vicario is capable of stepping up on nights like this. We saw that against Monaco earlier on in the Champions League campaign. He was bombarded that night. I think he pulled off like 12 or 14 saves. He single-handedly earned us a point that night, and we are going to need another similar performance from him tonight. And his only job is to try and keep us in the game for as long as he can. Moving over to left wing back, and I do think Destiny Udogie will retain his place, and he's going to be absolutely vital defensively. Primarily, that's going to be his job. He is going to have to defend up against Kavica Kvaratskhelia. I know Jack would probably get a better pronunciation than me, but I gave it a go. He's explosive, unpredictable, one of the best 1v1 players in world football right now, and very, very clinical if you give him anything in and around the box. So Udogie's primary task is to try and limit his impact on the game. How he goes around doing that, I think he's got to get tight to him. He's got aggressive. He's one of them players. If you back off him, you allow him time and space on the ball, he's going to absolutely kill you. For me, it's about getting close to him. Use your assets against him. Use the fact that you're physically stronger than him and that you've got more pace than him. And look, every time that ball comes into him, get right up behind him and look to dislodge it. Look to overpower him rather than back off him. Offensively, we can't get caught as deep as we were against Arsenal. I would hope that there is instructions for Destiny Udogie at times if he receives that ball to push on a bit higher, try and get us, even if he can get us up to halfway, pick up a free kick, try and pick up a throw in so that we can take our time over it, slow the game down a little bit, relieve a little bit of pressure. Moving on over to right wing back, and it's of my opinion that I do think Jed Spence would drop out tonight with Pedro Porro coming in. And look, I hold my hands up. I think against Arsenal, I was of the opinion we should have went with Jed Spence for defensive reasons. And although Porro does have his defensive vulnerabilities, and I didn't think it was a game that would suit him, at the end of the day, I learned a valuable lesson. Where we are at as a team right now, with him being one of the most creative players in the team, and he gives us something that we lack, just that little bit of quality on the ball. For that reason alone, he has to play tonight, because when we lost that against Arsenal, we didn't have the ability to get out. Porro has that ability. He can push high and wide with the ball. He has the ability to be able to put in good crosses, float balls in behind with a bit of curve on it rather than it going straight. So at least then it holds up a little bit on the pitch, gives our strikers a chance to be able to get on the end of it. And we really need that ability back in the team. However, defensively tonight, he is in for a long evening. Usually it's Bradley Barcola that plays over that side. He loves to cut inside at every opportunity, and also one of the most devastating one-on-one wingers in world football right now as well. But not only that, you've got the problem of Nuno Mendes bombing on the outside, overlapping every time, and again, giving him time and space. If you don't go with him at times, he can punish you with really good deliveries into the box as well. So defensively, he's in for an absolute long evening tonight. He is going to be on the back foot for large parts, and at times he is going to need players, whoever's playing at right side of centre-back or João Paulinho in the midfield, to get out and help him deal with that double threat down that side. Moving on to right-sided centre-back, and I know Kevin Danso played here against PSG in the Super Cup, but it's of my opinion Christian Romero should actually play at right-sided centre-back. Now, I know traditionally you do put your leaders in the centre because they are your shot callers. They're the ones that will tell the other centre-backs when to push up, the line, stuff like that. And they're also the ones that look across the line and tell people to make sure that they're keeping the eye on the line, because we did get caught out with that for Arsenal's first goal. Destiny Udogie, he was back further than everybody else. However, it's of my opinion that in order to navigate the Nuno Mendes threat and the Barcola threat, when Kevin Danso was operating with that task in the Super Cup, a lot of times when the right wing back was caught forward, Danso was tasked with coming out to that space, and a lot of times he ended up dragging his man down, giving away free kicks, which again causes us a few problems. For me, I think Romero is actually better equipped to be able to come out into that position where he's more exposed, he doesn't have the same cover, and actually deal with that threat than maybe Kevin Danso. But also in possession, likewise, I think you'll get more out Romero playing at right-sided centre-back because he'll have more time and space on the ball, and even if he is pressed, he has the capability of getting out of it and has a better passing range to be able to play players in further up the pitch than what Kevin Danso does. And I think over on that right hand side, I just think it opens up the pitch a lot more for him to be able to supply our forward players rather than one long straight ball from the middle straight down the middle, which is bread and butter for usually the opposition centre backs. Now moving into Kevin Danso, he will come in at centre back of the back three, and the reason why I've put him in here is against PSG, when they did change it off the bench, we had to deal with a lot of crosses coming into the box. And I would argue the first goal, if we actually had Kevin Danso playing in the middle, I think he would have defended it a hell of a lot better than maybe what Christian Romero did. And I just think having that extra physicality, that extra presence, and the best guy early across all of the defence, which is Kevin Danso in my opinion, should be in the middle, heading away those clearances. Also, I've seen it with this guy, back to the wall, defensive duties, he puts his body on the line, and you need that right in the middle. So for me, that I think he'd be better suited there as well. He won't get as exposed as maybe he has been at times when he's been asked to do stuff on the ball. And the thing is, he looks awkward on the ball. He's not necessarily bad on the ball, but he looks awkward, and sometimes he can give bad giveaways. So I think in the middle, you don't ask as much of him in that position. And then that brings me on to left-sided centre-back. And of course, the man of the moment, or the man of the season so far, Mickey van der Ven, will come in and operate here. And Look, he's one of the most important players for me today because PSG, they are going to look to slide balls in behind, put little balls in behind, and Mickey van der Ven's pace and his reading of the game will give us the ability to be able to snuff out a lot of them without actually suffering damage off the back of it. So that's one reason why I think he has to play. But also, in possession, I would like to see Frank maybe give him a little bit more leeway or a little bit more license to sort of drive forward with the football, because we've seen with Mickey van der Ven, he has the ability to turn defence into attack at the speed of lightning. Now, of course, it does come with risk, right? If he drives out with the ball and he gets caught on it and it gets turned over, all of a sudden he's left a huge gaping hole for PSG to attack into, and they will probably punish you. But what's the other alternative? Sit as deep as we did against Arsenal and get railroaded anyway? For me, I think that's something that we should utilise a little bit more in this system as an outball. But also, let's not forget, in the game in the Super Cup, he did prove himself to be a menace in the opposition box, and he's continued on that trend all season, from the long throws, from the set pieces. And if anyone's going to nick us a goal today, it will be at the club's top goal scorer. And I can't believe I'm saying this about our centre-back, but it will be him. Also, Mickey van der Ven does enter this game at risk of a suspension. If he picks up a yellow card, he will miss the game against Slavia Prague in December. But this is where I argue I think Spurs need to get a little bit clever. I remember Jose Mourinho instructing Chelsea players to pick up yellow cards, and he basically looked at the games and says, well, we can afford a suspension here, but we want you for these next couple of games after that. And I think this is a situation where Tottenham find themselves in with Mickey van der Ven, and also the same with Kolo Muani today. We really shouldn't need these against Slavia Prague. We should be able to play others and still go and beat them. But if he doesn't pick up a yellow card here, and he does say in the Slavia Prague game or in the Dortmund game, that means he misses one of them two games then come towards the end, where they're going to be absolutely vital and determine whether we're getting out in the top 8 or even getting out into a qualifier round into the next round. So for me, I think it would be smart to instruct them, if you're not booked, later on in the game, cheeky it, 90-minute, pull a player down on the counter, pick up a yellow card, miss Slavia Prague, and that means we're guaranteed to have him, bar injury, for Borussia Dortmund and Frankfurt, which are the two bigger games which will decide our fate. Moving into the midfield, and I do expect it to be a double pivot of Sarr coming in for Rodrigo Bentancur and João Paulinho. And we'll start with João Paulinho. I mean, look, these games tonight is exactly why we signed João Paulinho, to be that midfield enforcer against the top level opposition. Now, PSG midfielders, they're very technical. We know what they're like. They've got a very good passing range to dictate the tempo of the game. And given time and space like we gave the Arsenal midfielders, we will get absolutely punished. The only option here is to try and get in their faces and try and rough them up a little bit. That's the side of the game I believe they're lacking. Despite all their technical ability, I think the only way we can do this is try and actually get pressure on the ball, because a lot of teams now employ a man-for-man system. We're employing a zonal system lately, and it's absolutely backfiring. We're not getting any pressure on the ball, and we're just at the will of our opponents. We can't afford to do that here. At some point in these games, you have to go and try and force your own luck. And the only way by doing that is going to put pressure on the ball and playing to your strengths. And our strengths, what we have over them in the midfield, is that physicality. So send Paulinho in there and look for him to get in there, disrupt the rhythm, throw a couple of players around the place and see if we can turn the ball over and hit them on a quick counter. Because at the end of the day, our only attack or our only bit of quality from the North London derby came from him coming out of the midfield, laying in on somebody, winning the ball over, and Richarlison done the rest from there. So for me, I think hopefully Thomas Frank will learn from that Arsenal game and instruct this double pivot to get after them. And then moving on to Sarr, his job is the exact same as Paulinho's. Use your attributes. He's fast, he's physical, he has the ability to be able to cover ground, turn ball over. We've seen that time and time again, and I've always argued when Tottenham were at their best at pre-season and at the start of the season, we were pressing teams high, and it was Sarr that was the linchpin of that. Getting after players, turning over ball, and we were able to go and beat Man City by doing exactly that. And I just think it's a big ask to ask Bentancur off the back of the game for Uruguay then no North London derby, and also did put in a lot of effort in this game. Big games back to back to back. Their energy's zapping, especially when you're spending large parts out of possession and stuff like that. And I just think we could do with a pair of fresh legs in the midfield. Now, of course, I do believe you lose a bit of maybe composure on the ball that Bentancur does bring, but with Sarr, I think he has the ability to be able to turn over a ball and just spring into life. And he also has more legs to be able to get up with the forward play than maybe what Rodrigo Bentancur does, and try and support some of them forward players and break out from that midfield. So that's why I would pick Sarr today. But also, he also possesses the ability to be able to score from distance, something that we might need in this game. And when it comes to the midfield, just quickly, I know they have a fantastic midfield. They've got João Neves in there, and Vitinha, and also Fabian Ruiz. Excellent technicians. But João Neves is the heartbeat of this PSG team. Right now, he is one of the best, if not the best midfielder in world football. Technically brilliant. Physically, although small, he's still capable. He's also added a lot more goals to his game this season. And how do you go around stopping someone like that from sort of dictating the game? In my opinion, do you go old school and employ a man-marking job on him? And if Frank does want to go about doing this, because at the end of the day, we can't just sit there and allow him to do it. You have to try and stop him. I think Sarr is the right guy. The old saying, if he leaves the pitch and goes for a shite, you fucking go and you sit on the system while he's having his shite. And to complete the midfield three, I have gone with Xavi Simons. Now, of course, Bergvall could be an option to step in here either, or you could play Sarr here and put Bentancur in and go with the same midfield you did against the Super Cup. However, I would argue, I do think we need fresh legs, and I think with Xavi Simons, in fairness to the guy, he does work hard out of possession. I have seen him chase people down, so he will add that, and there is going to be an element where, again, we're going to need him to get in and around that midfield and disrupt them. However, in possession, we need a plan. And with Xavi Simons, you can give him that license to sort of float about when we get the ball, try and pick up positions where he can get on that ball, get turned, and go and hurt PSG. We also need someone with the ability to be able to get their head up and put the ball in behind. And although Xavi Simons hasn't done that to a plumb this season, at least he's trying. At least he's looking for it. And for me, I'll take that right now with where we're at. And if he is selected, this is a massive night for Xavi Simons. A statement opportunity against his former club. PSG let him go. And tonight he has the perfect chance to show what they have lost and maybe, hopefully, make them regret it. Now, I get he hasn't exactly been great this season, but I'd also make the argument for him that I'm not sure Thomas Frank knows what to do with him. You go through his Brentford teams, he didn't really have that player, that specialist operating in that position. I think Frank is maybe struggling to know what to do with the guy, or maybe how to get the best out of him, or how to sort of fit him in and around the system. And at the end of the day, we paid big money for the guy. He came with big reputation. He can turn up for Holland. He's done it at other big clubs that he's been at. So it's on Frank and Simons to try and work this out moving forward, because we are going to need that player in that number 10 role because of our lack of ability in deeper positions to have that player that can maybe, with a better passing range, that, if you don't have that cam, you can bypass it, you can go long. If we don't have that player that can play them accurate balls in behind, then you do need to run your attack through someone like Xavi Simons, who then opens up the passing lanes with his ability and his vision. So they do have to come together and try and sort this out for Tottenham's greater good, because right now, the attack is what everyone's screaming about. And for me, I think it's a two-pronged problem. Yes, maybe we don't have the greatest of quality across all positions, but also when you look at all the stats and the fact that it's relegation form going forward, that also lends to that it is partly the system's problem as well. Because let's be brutally honest, when we do go forward, you don't exactly see players, fullbacks overlapping. You don't really see midfielders really getting up with any purpose to try and support the attack. And a lot of that, for me, is manager instructions, because he's trying to protect that sort of back line. But at some point, you've got to release one or two players to get forward and create options. Now, moving into the front line, and I do think it should be, in my opinion, a front line of Mohamed Kudus and also Kolo Muani. Now, I know some would make the argument, could you play Johnson here, or should Richarlison get another run out off the back of his goal against Arsenal? But the reality is Johnson suspended after that game, after that red card against Copenhagen, so he is not available. But one of the reasons why I would play Kudus, and I know he didn't really demonstrate in the North London derby, and to be honest, I was a little bit let down and disappointed with his performance, because one thing I've praised him for all season is it didn't really matter what angle, how fast or how under hit that ball was coming into him. He has shown the ability time and time again this season to be able to hold it up, get turned and drive Tottenham forward. That wasn't there against the North London Derby. However, out of all the four players we have, I do think he's the only one that really possesses that ability. And I would put him out there again for that reason. Because in that forward line, you are going to need a player that has the ability to be able to get hold of that ball and play others in and around him. And the reason why I've gone with Xavi and Moani is because when you do get that, we don't have the option to slow it down, pass it back, put ourselves under more pressure, let them press us again. No, we don't really have the ability to get out. If we get the ball into that front line and it sticks, they have to be able to work it between them and go directly at the opposition and try and carve them open. And you need real good technical players to do that. And I think right now, with some of the injuries we have and how limited we are, this is probably the best technical three we have to be able to link up, show some combinations, and try and pose a threat to PSG. Also, with Kudus, he can get on the ball. You know, he can take players on, and I do believe he will have I do believe him and Moani have the ability to be able to work with each other, because Moani's another one. He works hard out of possession. Again, can hold up the ball. But what I really like about Moani is he's one of the only four players I've seen this season at Tottenham actually attempt to run in behind, and you need that in this game. PSG will have a lot of space in behind that back line, and you need runners that are going to look for that ball in behind and look to penetrate it. And I think with Kudus holding up the ball, Moani making them runs in behind, I believe it gives us an opportunity then to be able to try and create a couple of clear-cut opportunities on their goal. Because at the end of the day, Sevilla, their new goalkeeper, he's had a bit of a mixed bag this season. He's got big shoes to fill. He had a really good game for them against, I think it was Le Havre at the weekend. But in general, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. He's not exactly the most physically or biggest imposing goalkeepers out there. And I believe if we can get a couple of shots and test them, I believe there's a few goals for us, just like there was in that Super Cup game. So that's why I've gone with these two up front. I think it gives you pace, power, the ability to be able to hold up the ball. I think it also gives you a bit of movement, but also that technical ability and also that directness that we need from our front players in this game. I would also say, like I said, you know, they are using a midfielder in general to fill in at right back right now. It's usually Sakaya Emery. It could be anybody else for this game because Hakimi is out injured, and I think there's a real opportunity for us to exploit that area specifically to try and get a bit of joy. And I would argue that's where Moani should be making a lot of his runs into that space to receive the ball and try and drive at him. And also when you are a midfielder stepping into full back, you leave a lot of space in behind in general. You sort of switch off. So for me, that's the area we really need to go and target. So there it is, guys. That is my predicted Spurs 11 away at PSG tonight. I think this will be one of the toughest, if not the toughest game of the season. Like I said earlier on, when we played them, they weren't fit. Now they're up and running. It's going to be a different ball game altogether. They're going to dominate the ball, attack in waves, and test absolutely every weakness we have multiple times, looking to get some joy and break that down. And in my opinion, that's exactly why Thomas Frank will go with a back five tonight, to try and survive the storm, stay compact, and try to strike on the counter. But I think the big thing for me is I'm okay with that. But my question is, are we going to engage the opposition? We're going to send the midfielders to engage them. We're going to push the wing backs out. Could one of the centre backs maybe step up at times? Are we going to send the forward players to go after the ball rather than just sit in on top of each other and not put any pressure on the ball? And are we going to have a game plan in possession? What I mean by that is, are we going to go long ball direct into the strikers, and is it going to be Kudus that we're going to look to aim at to hold up the ball, or Moani? Or are we going to look to avoid that altogether, put the ball in the channels and get them to turn the back line, put pressure on them and try and pick up throw-ins and all that way? That's what I mean by a game plan in possession. Or are we going to look to, say, Xavi Simons to move to the left or right, depending on where that ball comes out from the back, pick up that space, feed him, and he feeds players in behind? Because against Arsenal, that wasn't there. Against Chelsea, that wasn't there. And it's going to be even more humiliating against this PSG team tonight if that's not there, because you just leave yourself at will against the opposition. We have to try and strike a blow on them somehow, and we need to see that from this Tottenham team tonight. But look, guys, like I said, whoever steps on the pitch tonight, you know, it's a chance for them to be able to redeem themselves after that humiliating Arsenal defeat. Just show a bit of passion, a bit of pride, and hopefully prove that Spurs do belong in the Champions League, because at the end of the day, them players, they do have pride, and there's a lot of people questioning how good they actually are. Do they belong at this level? Are they Are they sort of stealing a living at this level? And there's only one way to hit back and make people stand up and take notice, and that's in games like this and pulling a shock result. So guys, let me know in the comments if there's anything you would maybe change. Do you agree or disagree with my reasons behind team selection? And also let me know how you're going to watch tonight's game and how fearful you are, or is there anyone that actually does carry belief, because some of us can't be delusional and think maybe we can get a result. Because what I will say is, when people usually write Tottenham off, we end up shocking everybody. It's when there's expectations on us, we let ourselves down. But guys, if you've enjoyed this video, please smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, and I'll see you back here later on for the build up to the big game. As always, come on, you Spurs.